as a commission, as well as the board members and whatnot. So yeah, we'll go through this kind of the agenda this morning: promotional activities, research, educational, financial report, and we're also going to do a service award, industry service award, and then we'll go into the National Council presentation. The board as it sits right now, we got Glenn Sakuma of Burlington. I don't know if we want to have people stand up or not. Glenn just raised his hand in the back. That's Glenn. Randy Honkoop, vice president, also does the research, chair of the research committee. Jesse Guman does promotions. John Cotton, not sure if he's here today or not. He's down in Southern Washington. Myself, we do have one empty seat. If anyone is willing to be a board member, please contact one of us. Joel Kansker, he's our WSDA representative. Steve Midbow, crop consultant. And Joan Yoder, our food safety and treasurer in the back. Yeah. All right, we got a volunteer. So here's just a graph real quick, a kind of history of the raspberry production over the past, looks like 17 years or so. As it shows, last year we had a pretty good crop compared to previous years, but we all know that that's just one part of the story. We had some pretty big challenges this year in marketing, mainly due to foreign competition and whatnot. And we'll go into both on the research side, what we're doing to both drive down the cost of production, whether that's mechanization, alternate growing practices, and a number of other things. And then on the promotion side, if you want to call it that, we have engaged legal counsel to pursue potential trade actions. And that will be a presentation done by King and Spalding at, I believe, 11:40 today. So please join us for that. Now I'll hand it over to Jesse for a quick overview on promotions.
One suggestion I have for you is you know, we've got so many blueberries that are being planted, and this is really going to depress the price. But the people that have raspberry land that's got good raspberry land, not wet feed or anything else, and so we've got some really good soil in our territory, and raspberries I think is going to be a good winner, because all the work that the Raspberry Association has done is promoted the health benefit that kind of followed along with the blueberries. And so I think that raspberries is going to be a godsend.
All right, so we are in support of the NPRC program, and we have some local promotions, the Raspberry Festival, as well as the fair. And we have submitted an application for a bonus buy, 1.5 million of seed or seedless puree. And we're also exploring participation in the federal school lunch program. And much like last year, we teamed up with Washington Grown, and they teamed up with Costco, and that can be available right here. The link's right here. And you can also, I think, we'll be putting it on our website as well. And we sponsored a Seattle Times educational supplement on innovation in tech and agriculture, which we're going to put on our website as well. But you can find it online. Just Google Seattle Times, and that's all I got. And here's Randy.
Good morning, all. I've been involved with the Raspberry Commission since 1993. Fair amount of those years I was officially on the board of directors or commissioners here for the Raspberry Commission. And nearly all of those years I've been quite, if not very, involved with the research side of the work that our Raspberry Commission does. Back when I first came on the Raspberry Commission, we probably had a research budget of maybe a little over $50,000 a year, even though, you know, we were not producing as many pounds as an industry back in the early to mid 90s as what we do today, even though the graph does show we were still producing quite a few pounds. In the earlier days, as far as my experience has gone, is that the Raspberry Commission was quite a bit more invested or involved in the promotion of raspberries in those days. Over time, we chose to move a little bit more into a balanced situation where we are supporting research efforts for the growers as nearly as much as promotion. And then I think it was about, really in the early 2000s, some of us started talking about the potential of following on the coattails of the blueberry industry and maybe forming a national program like they did that would spearhead and oversee the promotion efforts for that industry. And I think it was about 2006 or so, we actually got really serious about that effort, engaged USDA in exploring possibilities, and within short time, maybe 7 or 8 years, the USDA was good with what we were doing, and we were able to officially form the National Processed Raspberry Council. And with that, we, as a state commission, released into the hands of that group really the bulk, if not nearly all, of the promotional efforts on behalf of red raspberries. Well, that freed up a fair amount more budget at the state level here with our group to, the way I saw it anyway, to invest more heavily in research and supporting research, to give growers such as myself and even John Clark, you know, better tools that could be used to, I think, do a better job of growing, to reduce our costs, to be more responsible environmentally in our production systems, you name it. I feel it's important that we have as many tools as we can possibly develop for the growers. And I think that's a big part of why the commission was formed in the first place back in the, what was it, Sue? I think Lyle was involved with that effort in the early 70s, and I think the commission came into being in what, 74 or 76 or something like that, back when I was just a, you know, a little guy. But it's been interesting to work with the group and the whole industry. I feel extremely blessed to be a part of an industry like this. I grew up in the dairy industry. It was not a good fit for me. I loved to play in the dirt and grow plants. And I ended up with my younger brother Rick's recommendation exploring growing raspberries. And I got into it, and I really fell in love with the industry. And like I said, I am blessed to be a part of something like this where it gives you a lot of freedom, gives you a little freedom to do it the way you want. We all have our different farms and our different management systems, our different philosophies of how we want to do stuff. And I think that's a wonderful thing that we have that kind of freedom. Of course, we're doing it on our own dime. And that's where I see our collective efforts as a Raspberry Commission, where we're pooling a fraction of each of our pounds of production valued to do things that really bring value to all of our growers as much as possible. We don't always hit that target, I'm sure, but from my experience, most of the efforts at the commission level have the very best of intentions, and we are trying as hard as we can. That being said, I would continue to challenge any other growers here of raspberry to consider coming onto our board. I mean, I've been on plenty of years. We need fresh blood coming on all the time. We need people in our industry to stand up and take a few steps of responsibility to provide some leadership. It really does fall to the growers to do that. And if you are seeing that ability or ability to commit to that, it's not a huge time commitment, but it can be what you want it to be for the most part. Please give that some serious thought. It is important for the future of our industry. Yeah, some of us are coming or are in our fall of our farming careers, but there are young people, the next generations coming along. My concern is how are they going to be positioned to compete in this global marketplace that we're involved in. We have a lot of things going for us here up in this area for growing raspberries. As Daryl mentioned, we have some excellent raspberry soils. I would just love for the next few generations that they could continue to have the same opportunities as a lot of us have had over these years. But that's not a given if we don't continue to invest in that future. And so I just wanted to share that and challenge you to consider what you might be able to do to contribute to that effort. Not primarily for your own benefit or return individually as a grower, but as a thank you in some ways to this industry that has given you great opportunities. Challenges too, for sure. That's the way I see it, part of the fun of it. It'd be a real uninteresting line of work if we didn't have those challenges, but I've always believed that farmers like us, we're solutions people. We figure it out. Takes a while, but we can do it. And that, I guess, brings me to some of the things we're going to talk about in terms of what we do on the research side at the commission. We do have some great public and a few private research personnel here in the Northwest to help us find solutions to our growing challenges in the field. And there are many, many challenges. I think we've been able over time to address fairly adequately. Some or a lot of those, but some of those old ones, for you old timers, you know, they kind of keep swirling around. Sometimes they come around again and you got to revisit and refigure things out. Things change in the world and on our farms. So anyway, we do have a lot of projects. Our biggest contractor, if you will, would be WSU. They have and continue to build great capacity to serve us in our industries here in the small fruit industries. We're very grateful for all of those folks. USDA, ARS, especially through the Northwest Centers for Small Fruits Research down in Corvallis, has provided also a lot of expertise and really a lot of willingness to engage in our industry if our industry would have that and would invite that. So that's been a interesting and good partnership. We also work as much as possible with Ag Canada and all of the our colleagues across the line to the north, of which a fair amount of our growers here in this county are from Canada. Some even still live in Canada, but there is an international boundary that they all have to cross nearly every day. But this is our industry here in Whatcom County, very much the same as it is across the line in BC. We have a lot of the same issues, both on production side and marketing, and we're both of our industry organizations are doing whatever we can to support our individual industries and working together. We've decided is definitely the better route to take, so that building partnerships with other like-minded grower groups has hopefully been a hallmark of some of the years that I've been on the board. So yeah, our budget, $233,000 in 2017 for research. I'm fairly proud of that. I still would like it to be even more, but we do live within a budget there at the commission, and this is what we have agreed to. Going forward, I would expect that we're going to see similar numbers in the near future to be divided up to support priority areas. One thing about that in essentially the process that we go through each year is our fall meeting in September. As a research committee and even as the commission board as a whole, we spend a fair amount of time reviewing and talking about what are the areas that we've experienced, even like in this past year. A lot of our challenges do remain over quite a number of years, but there's always change. And it's at that meeting, these are open meetings to anybody that wants to come, listen, learn, participate, give us some ideas. We love that. We want that as much as possible. So please come and give your 2 cents, and we'll talk about it, explore it. So out of that meeting, we develop a list of priorities for research items. And based off of that list of priorities, we send out a request for proposals for research projects to address those priorities, so that all of the research community in the Northwest, anyone that wants to apply to us, for funding for a research project can apply, and we will give it very serious consideration. And then the remainder of the process later on, like in December, those projects need to be turned into our commission, and early January we, as a research committee, then review all of those projects and develop a tentative funding proposal to the whole Raspberry board or commission board, mid to late January meeting on that one, where the final decisions are made for funding projects. It's a bit of work, and we're trying to be as on target as possible. Certainly there's some difference of opinion. You know, John Mayberry doesn't get it right all the time in my estimation, but I do value his input. We have large growers, we have medium growers, we have small growers involved in this thing. We value each player. Yeah, we work with the Small Fruit Center. Commission for Pesticide Registration is also another partner. These are other organizations that provide funding or can provide funding to research to address our issues. So that's enough on that. We do some work. This isn't really in the research department so much, but we do recognize it as important for our industry to maintain our export opportunities, to move some product, hopefully more all the time, into foreign markets. In order to do that, the maximum residue limits or levels on that crop have to be accepted by those foreign markets, and that's a challenge because that's kind of a moving target at times, and it's a challenge. So anyway, we do continue to do that. We've also gotten some, through the commission and the research folks, applied for specialty crop block grants. That's through our Washington State Department of Agriculture. With that, each year the USDA, because of the Farm Bill direction, sends a hunk of money to each of the states with specialty crops. And there's a competitive process there in Olympia for some of that money, and we are applying for that, and we've been successful over the years on getting these funded. The bottom two there, TASK, that's Trade Assistance for Specialty Crops. That's through the AMS, Ag Marketing Service, another arm of USDA, to help us enter into or maintain our foreign markets. So we have to develop MRL related information. So some of those are significant. The bottom one then, there, the MRL degradation curves with Dr. Gerdeman here in Mount Vernon and Joe DeFrancisco down at Oregon State. It was over $700,000. And that's all taxpayer money. So you're not only supporting this with your assessment dollars, but some with your tax dollars. So anyway, that's the research committee report. Daryl, he's chomping at the bit. He's got to flap his gums here at me. And so what is it, Daryl?
Well, no, I really want to, I see Tom Krugman is here. Is Tom going to speak on the
Yes.
national side of it.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm speaking out of turn on it, but we want to know what the national is doing for us.
I
Thank
do
you.
too. You bet,
All
Daryl.
right.
Good. Thank you. Who's next? Joan?
All right. I'm actually going to pitch hit for Joan here a minute because we bring Joan on as an advisory person and we use her for all kinds of things. She's our communications chair of our communications committee and our treasurer, but since she's going to also present our budget next, I'm going to do this part here. We try to base one of the 3 different areas that we really work. We do some local promotions, as Jesse's been saying. We spend the bulk of our energy in research, as Randy elaborated on. And then we do whatever needs to be done for grower education. And so we do food safety workshops. We work with Tom Peerbolt and now the Northwest Berry Foundation on the Small Fruit Update, which hopefully most of you get. It's on a weekly e-newsletter. We do a quarterly e-newsletter from the Raspberry Commission. We maintain a website. Whatever, and we're, of course, and John alluded to this earlier, the other part that we're really starting to spend some energy on again is we recreated our Fair Trade Committee, which we do occasionally. We don't always keep that committee active, but it's been reactivated this year because we have some trade issues. And please listen, we have actually an attorney now that we've contracted with. He's in Washington, D.C. He won't be here, but he will be on the screen or at least audio talking to us at 11:40 today. So be here for that and kind of hear what we're doing and what are the options for that. Okay, so we got a couple more things we want to do, and then we're going to turn it over to the national program and let them tell you what they're doing on promotion. So, Joan, you are next. And what this is about is we do a budget. This is presented through the newsletter. Come on up. And then Joan will explain a little bit about it. We then adopt it in January based on what you guys, the feedback we get today and over the next couple months. You're on, Joan.
So basically, you can see that we have the final projected for 17. Henry hasn't totally finished everything out, but he projects what those are going to be for the end of December. So that is our projected draft budget. The $35,000 is what we already have received in assessments for next year because our assessments are due by the end of October. So that is where we're going to. So basically, we diligently try not to spend the whole budget in case stuff comes up, as Fair Trade did this year. So we have moved money out of excess monies to meet that Fair Trade $125,000. So that, in a sense, is not coming out of the budget; it's coming out of reserve funds. But when you look at it, you're going to see that there's an $88,000 deficit there, but it's coming out of the excess. Where it's coming from? It's coming from reserve funds that we haven't spent in the past years. So that in case something ever happens, we have a little bit of reserve that we can deal with whatever comes up. So that's kind of the outlook of the budget. We try to keep it real tight. We will vote on it, like Henry said, in January. So if you see anything, if you want to input on it, please do get a hold of anybody. We'll still take one more look at it in January before council votes on it. Are there any questions on that? That's Steve's. Are you talking on that? Okay, that's a Brian Christie contract. Brian Christie, there's a contract that we have with that. Thank you. MRL monitoring. Anything else?
what we have a 360,000 that we have reserve designated, and then there's always extra some money. I would call it non-designated reserve is what we're doing. And the bulk of that 125 is coming out of that non-designated reserve, which is about wiping that out. So, and I want to say one thing. This is a fellow, Steve Binbo, most of you know, been on our advisory board now for about 6 years, thereabouts. He thinks he's going to retire. At least from our board. And I think he deserves that. Brett Pell's going to come on in his place. So please, first of all, thanks to Steve thank you, sir.
Stole my opening line by explaining who I was. So it was my privilege today to represent the Red Raspberry Commission and the raspberry industry in presenting our very first Washington Raspberry Industry Service Award. There was some discussion of how to go about this and of course of who would be that first recipient. But very quickly and unanimously, we decided it should be Lyle Rader. But before we call his family and his workers and friends up here, we would like, excuse me, we would like to share a video of some of the early accomplishments in agriculture that Lyle did. So some of you have seen this. I've seen it before. A wonderful video. But for those of you who haven't, you will soon see what kind of passion that Lyle had about farming. He was innovative and driven to succeed in every type of farming he tried, and to our industry's benefit, he excelled in growing raspberries. And just to name a few things that we've learned from Lyle, one of the things that was easy to see, how he grew things on raised bed. We had never seen that before. When that came into this community, it was obvious that it was a good way to go for a lot of us. Number two, how he used to prune things out early. We weren't used to that. And he pruned things out early. And one day I was talking to him and he's saying, you know, it's easier to bend a green cane, tying it up where there's no cracking, you'd get no winter injury. And I kept that in mind. Number three, he could produce more canes per hill than anyone else I ever knew. And I don't know how many times I had people ask me, how in the world does Lyle do that? I wish they knew. So Henry, or Chris, if you could run the video.
Each year, leaders from business, industry, and agriculture gather at the National FFA headquarters to review the records of accomplishment of outstanding young farmers and select the 4 regional star farmers, designating one as the Star Farmer of America. To the Pacific region goes the highest honor of all, the one of the 4 star farmers selected as the most outstanding, the Star Farmer of America. He is 21-year-old Lyle Rader, truck farmer, skilled mechanic, good citizen. The Rader farm is at Fife, near Tacoma, Washington, in the fertile Puyallup Valley, with the lofty peaks of Mount Rainier on the one side, the fog-bound shores of Puget Sound on the other. When Lyle's father died, he left Mrs. Rader a half interest in the farm, the other half to Lyle, his older brother, and his sister. Good, rich soil. 42 acres of it. But what could a boy of 14 do with it? Lyle knew. He knew he could farm it and make it pay, if his mother would let him. Mrs. Rader agreed to let Lyle try it on a partnership basis. His enthusiasm and determination impressed Glenn Olmsted, teacher of vocational agriculture at Fife High School. The first 3 years, his supervised farming program included a few cattle and a patch of corn. He worked hard, and each year he did better than the year before. He took part in FFA work with equal enthusiasm, held offices in his local chapter and in the state association. When a rat problem developed in the community, he served as chairman of the FFA Rodent Control Committee. Though everything seemed to be going well for Lyle, he was worried. Wasn't there some way to make 42 acres of good silt loam produce a better living? To raise beans, Lyle needed 20,000 bean poles. With the saw he constructed in the ag shop, he turns out 1,200 poles an hour. By hand, the best the crew could do was about 100 an hour. And with the saw, the poles are more uniform. He also uses the saw to sharpen the poles. Though he loves to build things, he buys new equipment if he feels it will reduce his production costs. His bean trelliser runs wire at the top, heavy cord at the bottom, and the strings in between in one operation. Imagine doing all that by hand. To Lyle, there's a challenge in everything that grows. The appearance of the Raider farm today proves how well he has met that challenge. He gives his training in vocational agriculture credit for what he has accomplished. Many nights, when the lights burn late in the ag shop, you'll find him there. Hey, Lyle, what are you building?
I'm trying to build a better tomorrow.
Yeah. Very, very special man. So without further ado, I'd like to call up Sue, Julie, Brad, family, if you would, and a round of applause for this good group of people. Make lots of room. So this is the immediate group, the immediate team, his legacy. There's many other team members out here too. Juan, Doug, Riley, and I might have missed a few, but all a part of Lyle's great legacy. And in behalf of the raspberry industry, we really appreciate the work he did, and we want to present this to you. So, you're first. And a few words, if you would, share.
He was an amazing man, and I was privileged to be at his side for all the years that he worked here particularly and was successful. A lot because of the team that he put together, the encouragement of our family, his immediate family, sister, brother. But I just can't tell you how much this means to all of us. We've got young grandchildren, and we hope that this will inspire young people, as the previous person discussed, to go into agriculture. It isn't an easy field, but it's an amazing field. And I just hope Lyle went through all sorts of adversity, losing his dad at a young age, polio, dyslexia, all sorts of things, but he always said adversity builds character. And that was his belief. He also believed attitude was such a big part of how you look at life and how you handle it. And I was just honored to be at his side and very honored to receive this. So thank you.
Well, I know we have to get going with other business, but it's an honor. Sincerely appreciate this from our family, my wife Carrie, Ariana, my daughter Sophia, my sister Julie, and you know, we got a lot of work to do, and you can see what Dad said at the end about the future. and we've got some challenges, but we got to persevere. And you know, I wish he was in some of those meetings, but we just got to do what he would do and power through. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I think, yeah, I think we've got to stick together as a family and figure this out in this state, in this country. And I just appreciate you guys and how much we do. And we got Juan Garcia and his wife Petra and Javier Lopez. There's like 55 years combined. They're working together. Sharon and Carol in the back. There's another 50 years of working together. And you guys all have people just like that. So we appreciate what. Can you guys stand, please? And then we'll get going. So. But this is a real honor, and I really appreciate it.
So thank you. We appreciate Lyle, all the work he's done and the legacy that he's left. Julie? Yeah.
Thank you. I also wanted to say thank you. And I don't live up here and I don't still live on the farm, but my dad is an example every day to my family. We have a 10-year-old daughter and she wasn't as fortunate as Ari and Sophia to know my dad as long, but we have blueberry bushes at my home that he planted, and every year we plant different crops. And other than just the agriculture and the farming we talk about in life, what would Papa do? And so we talk about him all the time and the choices that he made and the things that he taught us and my brother. And I'm so proud that he was my dad and that he was her grandfather and that I was a part of this family. So thank you so much.
I don't want to take, I just wanted to mention that years ago, I remember the four of us going back to Washington, D.C. I'm not even sure Brad or Lyle was representing the Trade Commission, I believe, but here we were, country bumpkins from, and I'm not saying Lyndon, but I think then, I don't remember. Yeah, we were, and going back there, and he had the courage and the strength to speak before the Trade Commission. It was just mind-boggling. We had to go through all this security. I think we did that twice. And I'm just saying, you know, you just have to have the desire. Agriculture is quite an industry today, and if we're going to compete with foreign competition, you've just got to, you got to do it. So I just hope his example and this recognition will inspire all of you and your family and your children to keep going, because eggs an amazing, amazing industry. Thank you again so much. I'm really proud of you guys.
Very well put. Thank you, family. There's one other thing with this award that I forgot to mention. There'll be an ongoing also recognition of a plaque in the Red Raspberry Commission office of the recipients that will receive this award in the now, of course, Lyle's first, and in the future. And the one responsibility that this group will have, they get to pick next year's recipient of this award. So that's your one responsibility. You get to pick next year's recipient. So you got all year to think about it. So thank you, everyone.
All right, Tom and Allison and John, Mark, you guys, National is the next group up here. What do you need keyed up? So Chris, you got it? Okay. So this is as we mentioned, we usually try to divvy up this time between our state commission and what the National is doing, since we're so closely tied. So the next, we've got until 9:30. So what do we got in terms of time? About 45 minutes. All right. President.
Good morning, Ed. I'm John Clark and chairman of the National Raspberry Commission. It's a little difficult. My comments that I had planned after listening to the introduction of the Raiders. There are only two things that I know for sure. And that's one is that I'm younger than Daryl. And that I'm not quite as optimistic as Daryl is facing the challenges that we do in our industry. This last couple of years have been exceptionally challenging because we're in not only grower, but I'm also a processor, and the difficulty that we're experiencing with foreign competition is reality. I mean, we've seen our prices drop by about 15 to 20 cents, and we're having difficulty selling our crop. The other thing, Randy, you know, when you mentioned that Jonathan, you don't always think he makes the right decision, what did you expect when you chose John to be the chairman of your group? But anyway, I'd like to take the opportunity. I think this is 4 years that we've had the National Raspberry Commission with the objective of trying to promote our raspberry industry. And the idea was to bring in foreign producers so that we could get some sufficient funds to initiate a campaign. There are some who are questioning how successful we have been, but I can assure you I've been involved in these last 4 years, and these two people up here are doing an excellent job. Now, how effective we can be, I think I'll leave that up to them to explain to you, but it's not from a lack of effort on their part. And we're all trying to do our best because actually, and this is yesterday, there were two different people asked me, why are you still doing this? Why don't you turn this over to your kids? And I said, well, I love my kids. So anyway, with that, this is Tom and Allison. I'm sure you all know.
Well, thank you, John. This is, it is a challenging time for the council. It's a challenging time for the industry. And we certainly understand that. We're sensitive to it. I think earlier this week, there's a number of committee meetings and a council meeting. And we had a lot of very frank and honest and at times difficult conversation. I think for those of you who were there, you would agree with that. But it was very productive in that we got things out. We aired some of the problems. We talked about them, and how we can move forward. And I think that's really one of the what in Alice and I, in putting our presentation together for today, changed what we normally do. In the last few years, we've talked about what we've done over the last year, where the program is going over the next year. But I think it's more important today to present why there are reasons to believe, why there's hope and optimism for the industry, how we fit into the trends, what's going on, how we match up as a product. And the thing I can really say about raspberries is that we're the right product at the right time, and we're on the trends that the consumers, that the end users, the marketplace is looking for. And we have a plan in place to take advantage of being on those trends. And that's really been the hallmark of the council, and the way it's been organized and what it's done is we've taken time, maybe too much, maybe not enough, but we've taken the time to really plan our work, to investigate, to find out what it is we're dealing with. We've done the market research with consumers, with food service operators, with food manufacturers. We've asked the trade, we've gone out there, and what is it that, in looking forward, are going to be the things that drive an industry forward. And then we've brought that knowledge back. So really, as a knowledge-based industry, we're an organization. We think about what we learn and how do we apply that. We learn from others. It's been mentioned a couple times today that not riding the coattails, but the example of the blueberry industry, and also what other industries have done as well. the strawberry industry, almond industry. What have they done right? What have they done that could have been done better? So we benefit from that in learning from what other people have done. And we've put together a great team of researchers that are working on behalf of the industry and looking at the nutritional benefits of raspberries. And the question came up the other day, is that the only thing we're doing on marketing? But it's not. The nutritional message is just part of it. And these are some of the things that Allison will talk about as the trends and how we're riding those trends and getting ahead of those trends. So I think there is a lot of optimism. There's still challenges out there. There's things we have to work through as an industry, but personally, it's very gratifying that we do have people that are involved on the council, just as there are with the Raspberry Commission here in Washington, that dedicate their time and their energy and their thoughtfulness in coming up with challenging us to dig deeper and to look harder, but also their expertise. So it's a collective effort, and it is moving forward. And so they say we've got really 5 trends. Allison's going to talk about 5 different trends that give reason to believe that are optimism for the future and what we're doing and how raspberries match up with those trends. So with that, Allison Beadle is the owner and president of Wild Hive. It's our communications partner, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you all for coming to the presentation this morning. I love coming up here. Every opportunity that I have to come up here when we're having council meetings or we're bringing members of the trade and the media up here for harvest tours in the summer, I always get giddy excited about coming up to this part of the country to see what y'all are doing. Y'all live and breathe this every single day, growing raspberries, processing raspberries, building this industry. And it's so inspiring to come up here and be in your presence in this land. I'm from Texas, and so I'm, a few states away. I also am not a farmer, and I did not grow up in a farming family, but I feel very blessed that my career has taken me down a path in food marketing where I get to work on behalf of farmers to help in any way that we can support your livelihood and what you're doing, because we want you to be able to continue doing what you're doing and to be able to do it profitably and to pass this on to your children and your grandchildren. And so it's great for me to come up here and be around y'all, to hear these discussions and to get some perspective from, what y'all are grappling with here on the ground. For my presentation today, I am going to give you a little bit of our perspective coming from, not necessarily from the outside, but from a different part of the food industry. And what I'm hoping you will find is what we know is that trends are working in our favor. They're working in the favor for processed raspberries. And I'm sure sometimes when y'all are, thinking about these huge and very real issues that the industry is facing right now, it may be hard to realize that this is the case. And over the mid and long term, I think, y'all, we are really positioned to just catapult on these trends, but we've just got to hang tight and hang with it. So I'm going to talk you through 5 trends, as Tom said, that we feel like really indicate that we've got a reason to believe that real red raspberries, that processed raspberries, are positioned in the right place at the right time. So the first trend that I want to talk about is really the trend of our story and the story of agriculture and farming, producers, the way crops are grown, the way they are processed and handled. Never before, I don't think, in in the food industry have we been at a moment when consumers really care about this. And this is what is driving their purchasing decisions, both in terms of fresh produce that they're buying, packaged foods that they're buying, meats that they're buying, dairy products that they're buying, restaurants that they are choosing to eat at. The story of food is more powerful now than it has ever been. And I think this is so exciting because if you think about the story that we have as an industry, it's powerful, but most importantly, it's real. And that is what consumers are wanting to connect with. They want to connect back with these real stories of producers who are growing and processing very high quality foods. And that's what y'all are doing up here. And it's amazing. And this works very well for us from a trend standpoint, because not only is this what consumers want, this is what restaurants are wanting in terms of ingredients. This is what the emerging and the future of food manufacturers want as ingredients as well. So we're very fortunate in that we have this really strong story of family farmers dedicated to quality that we can tell. And not all industries can truly and authentically tell that story, but we can. The second trend is health benefits. And Tom mentioned the research program that the National Processed Raspberry Council has in place to fund research to discover new health benefits of red raspberries. And I'll tell you that this research program is really entering a phase where I would say we are hitting our stride. We're expecting this year to have between 4 and 6 research studies completed and published in scientific journals, which means then we'll have more data that we can take out to the media and to consumers. And what we expect that to do is generate more buzz in the media, more consumer articles, more awareness with food manufacturers and with food service of the health benefits of raspberries. So we know that this is, research takes time to complete, as all of us in the room have been involved in research know, but what we are seeing from the results that are coming forth from this research is there are strong, very interesting and unique health benefits of raspberries. And fortunately, the council's research program really invested heavily in these research studies in the early year of the council, and we're now starting to see these results come to fruition, get published in scientific journals, and we'll be able to take those results out to the media and out to consumers. Warming up to frozen. So, and this is specifically on the consumer side of things. There's been this huge trend and focus on fresh produce, fresh everything for several years now. And what we have started to notice in the marketplace is that consumers and also the media and those who influence consumers, so many of the high-profile bloggers and food writers, health professionals, registered dietitians, are really starting to understand the value of frozen produce. And in particular, we see this a lot with frozen berries. And so we're starting to see more coverage in the media of the benefits and the quality of frozen produce. And we're seeing a lot of great media articles highlighting frozen raspberries as an ingredient. And I will say we're seeing more of that than we were seeing just a couple of years ago when we started working on this program. So we can tell that there's a nice trend working in our favor here to embrace IQF and frozen raspberries as a really high quality, high flavor, picked at the peak of ripeness ingredient. So we're very heartened to see that, and we think that this trend is only going to continue to snowball. It aligns very nicely with many of the consumer values that are shaping purchasing decisions. So the need for convenience, for products that are healthy, that deliver a really good value, that are flavorful, and that minimize food waste. And as we know, that's a big problem with fresh produce, is the amount of food waste that consumers often generate overbuying, you know, food going to waste in their refrigerator and it just gets thrown out. And there's an increasing amount of a consumer awareness of this as a big problem and looking to frozen as a solution for that. So we think that's another trend that's working very nicely in our favor. Menus are changing. So I've talked a little bit about food service. We're just seeing truly dramatic changes in the food industry overall, both on the food service side and in food manufacturing, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But in particular, in food service with restaurants, we're seeing menus starting to change rapidly. And this is in response to consumer demand and then also regulatory pressure. There's new legislation that has been enacted and will be rolling out over the next year with restaurants for mandatory labeling of nutritional information on restaurant menus. And what this is doing is it's causing restaurants and the decision makers at restaurants to go back to their R&D team and say, hey, we've got to clean up our menus because we need to be offering healthier products for our customers. We're going to have to be publishing the nutritional value of all of these foods. Consumers want this. They're flocking to other places for food because they don't think our food is healthy. So they're looking for ingredients that will help to improve the nutritional value of their menu while at the same time supporting really flavorful and delicious products. And going back to my very first slide, ingredients that have a story. So what we're seeing on the food service side, and this goes for restaurants and it also goes for school food service as well, both in the K through 12 and at the university level, we're seeing really produce forward thinking. So really putting fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes in the center part of the plate and looking for ways that they can use real fruit as solutions for product development for menus. I mentioned food waste earlier as being a big focus on the consumer side. It is perhaps an even more huge focus on the food service side. Many of the largest players in food service are enacting really sweeping changes with their organizations to minimize food waste. And many of the large food service establishments have one person in charge. Their whole focus is on food waste. And what we're hearing from many of the food service decision makers that we're talking to is that they feel that our products, that processed raspberries, are perfectly in line with that trend, with so many of the micro trends that are changing the face of food service. So we feel, you know, we just feel like we're in a sweet spot for what's happening with food service. And you know, and the great thing about food service is that they're interested in all of our product formats. You know, it's not just IQF. They are very interested in what we're doing and the products available that are purees and juice concentrates. We're seeing just a lot of innovation happening on the food service side that aligns perfectly with the products that y'all are growing and processing up here. And now packaged food. This is one of, I would say, the most interesting areas of the food industry right now. There's a definite revolution taking place with packaged food. And what we are seeing is that the large consumer packaged good conglomerates, the General Mills, the Kellogg's, the Unilevers, the Nestle's of the world, they are losing market share to the tremendous amount of emerging brands that are coming on the market. And this, again, is in complete response to consumer demand, the new consumer mindset for food. And we're seeing a lot, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of food brands that have started up over the past 5 to 7 years and are encroaching on the market share of the large CPG companies, the legacy brands. And what you're going to see happen over the next, you know, really in the next couple of years, I mean, you're just 2 to 5, 10 years, it's going to be a complete sea change in terms of who is leading the way with food manufacturing. What's happening is many of these brands are started up by food entrepreneurs who are, have these consumer values that we've been talking about. They want real ingredients that have a story, that connect back to the farmer. And this is very important to these brands to deliver and create products that share those values, that have that story. This is aligning with consumers. Consumers are buying those products. They are not buying the cereals that they used to buy. They're not buying the yogurts that they used to buy. They're not buying the granolas that they used to buy. They're buying new brands. And so what's happening is there's a tremendous amount of investment money that is going into these emerging brands. And the big CPG companies are beginning to buy these emerging brands because they know that as a large consumer packaged good, they cannot create authenticity. They have to go out and become authentic by bringing these new brands into their portfolio. So I am in particular extremely excited about the opportunity that our ingredients have for what's happening in the new packaged food marketplace. These packaged food companies, what we like to say is that they're premiumizing. They want to only have clean labels that are made up of ingredients that are real, that are wholesome, that tie back to the farmer, that have a story, and they're willing to pay for them. And that is, I think, one of the most important things here. These premium packaged goods that are taking over the marketplace, they sell at a price premium. Consumers are willing to pay a price premium for them, and therefore the manufacturers can pay a price premium for their ingredients. So from a manufacturing standpoint, I think we have a great opportunity with this segment of food manufacturing to get in now while they are innovating and ride the wave of growth with them. So, in summary, we really, as Tom said, we wanted to come here today and talk with you about why we have reasons to believe. And it really just goes back to 3 key points. It's that we know that real red raspberries, processed raspberries, are what consumers want. We embody what consumers want. We embody what food service needs in order to make the changes that they are being compelled to make to meet consumer demand and regulatory pressure. And we are what food manufacturers desire. We are the type of ingredients that the food manufacturers of today and the future want to use. So we are very hopeful because of all of these trends. And I hope that this can instill some hope in y'all just on a day-to-day basis, thinking about the future of the industry and the role that your ingredients can play. We feel that there's a lot of hope. And while, we may not be able to turn the tide overnight, I think in the next few years, you're going to start seeing some really exciting things happening because of the trends that are at play. Thank you. We're ready to take questions.
Hi. I got a couple of questions. One, in comparison of the imports, do you find that the quality of the Northwest berries are superior of question 1? In flavor and health.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's very much a loaded question. For our role is we're promoting raspberries, all raspberries. And the market really is the one that makes that decision. And we have heard already that there's been some pushback from some food manufacturers on and rejection of some of the imports because it's a different, the sugar acid ratio is different, the flavor is different, the color is different. So the market will correct for that.
I guess I realize that you can't play games because of all the countries that's involved in this, the National Commission. So but I guess that was just a little kick in the pants on that one.
Sure, I understand.
Well, anyway, does the National do any experimental research work as far as like what the Washington State Commission does, or is it mainly concentrated in the marketing, which is a big deal? That marketing and the nutrients and everything of our fruit. But do they do any research work?
So the research work from the council is all focused against nutrition and nutritional aspects. We're also looking at a validation project on eliminating or minimizing microbial contamination. So it's a food safety project that would be applicable across the industry. And we'll also be looking for a vendor to do research on the sensory aspects, which then tie in, as Allison talked about, the trends, but just what the fingerprint, raspberry's fingerprint, what is it that makes it so unique from a sensory perspective that we can use that as part of our marketing message as well. So, but we don't get involved in the production side of research. It's all, like I say, the nutritional, food safety, and then the sensory.
Is anything being done on dried fruit, dried raspberries?
At this point, no. There's really two parts of that, Daryl. One is that as the, you know, a dried raspberry is like a raisin or a craisin, that type of a product. We did talk this week a lot about where is it that we drive market growth and new opportunities. One is in new markets and the other is new products. So that there is, we've been looking for where that's being done. And then the other is the freeze-dried side. And the freeze-dried uses the industry's products, either an IQF or the whole broken, as an input. So that's a manufactured item. So we're already supporting that into the freeze-dried side.
Gerald, to address your first question, and I think this is the real issue that we're facing in our industry. The quality that we have is obvious. You know, that's not the issue. But what we're running into is primarily the Mexican raspberry that's coming in here at a ridiculous price. And now that we have the internet, every buyer, every broker sees these prices. And I mean, I'm talking ridiculous prices that you can't produce a raspberry for. They're coming back to us and saying, okay, you know, sure, you got a little better product. Maybe we'll pay a dime more for it. And they're not going to pay 30 or 40 cents more for it. And that's, to me, that's the real issue that we're facing. And, you know, in our meetings with the Serbians and with the Chileans, they're not liking these prices either. But because that information is out there, am I wrong? We don't know. That information is not available to us. It's like the stuff that's coming in from where we have triple berry that comes in. We're not able to assess how much volume is actually coming in. If you go to your Safeway or Albertsons and you look at the package, it's packaged in Canada. Where did the berries come from? I don't know.
There has to be more questions than the ones that Daryl raises.
Is this on? I guess along with that fruit quality aspect that we're talking about here, I think we need to continue to key in on that differentiation as Washington raspberry growers or Northwest raspberry growers. But I think that as we are in somewhat of a downturn on the marketing and pricing and our costs of production, continue to increase, I would expect we're going to feel increased pressure to possibly choose varieties that may be higher yielding but won't have the quality, the flavor profile that we've come to be known for. It's just, I think that we need to be careful about that. I think we've seen across the country historically choices may not be made based on quality. And how you, and of course, quality is, how do you define that? And everybody is going to define that different, and you folks are too. But if we're going to differentiate as an industry in support of our growers, we do need to maintain that level of quality. And our growers, we need to be cognizant of that, what we are putting into the market. And it is more than variety. It is the actual care that's taken in growing, packing, and delivering that product. So that I do believe that the market will always recognize that quality, and certainly there will be lag times for the pricing to reflect that. Mexico may be bringing in a bunch of low-priced raspberries, but from all reports, it is far inferior to what we produce. And I'm convinced that with market pressures, social media, communication, I think we can alert, so to speak, you guys, through your efforts, can alert the buying public to a greater extent of the difference. How you differentiate, that's going to be a challenge as National Processed Raspberry Council, because we all need to understand it isn't just Washington raspberries that's involved here, even though we are by far the largest domestic producer. But Canada and Chile currently also have seats on your board as major importers into our market. But it'll be interesting to see going forward what happens, and through your efforts. I just want to applaud you guys and your efforts. Certainly, John, you said you're 4 years into this. These things take time. We saw that with the blueberries, but they're enjoying very good success for their based off of their foundational works that they did over the years. And so I hope you guys can keep your eye on the best ball and drive this thing forward. We're counting on that for the future of this industry. As you know, it isn't just being able to grow raspberries. We have to be able to sell those berries. So we all have our part to play in that. And so if you want to talk a little bit more about potentials there or not, I don't know. It's not really a question, but
I was
just,
say there's no
just a
question
concern.
in there, Randy. Just well, just a couple of points just to take off of that. One is, the 4 years that the council has been in operation. One of the decisions it made right at the beginning was, and it was to invest heavily in the research side to jumpstart, recognizing the time that it takes for research to work its way through. And as Allison said, we're starting to see that now. This next year, there's going to be 4 to 6 studies being published. So that ball is now rolling, and the projects that have been funded will continue to see that growing. There's certain things we can say based on abstracts and progress reports, but what USDA, who oversees our messaging, is looking for is published studies that they can point to in peer-reviewed journals. So those are starting to come out. The other is the quality issue, and you make a really good point. When we talk to the trade, we talk about quality, and it's something that everybody's going to define different. But really, when you think about it, it's price plus quality equals value, and that's what we're trying to deliver, is that raspberries is a value proposition. And a food manufacturer or a food service operator who looks at a lower cost ingredient, the lower cost raspberry, buys it once and realizes, I may have got the price, but I didn't get the quality, so I'm not getting the value to my customer, my consumer, my end user. I talked with one importer recently who did buy a couple of containers of the lower priced product, evaluated it. It was rejected by their customers. They turned around and sent those containers off to Europe. They won't buy any more. Those decisions, I think, will increasingly be made as that difference is seen. But what we can do in the meantime is just keep pressing that quality and value part of it, and then people have to see and make that decision for themselves. And it's happening. It's one customer at a time. It's happening. So again, it's a difficult time, and we're sensitive to that. We understand it. We're doing what we can from our end to try to change that conversation to that environment, and making sure that the focus, it doesn't just become about price, so we don't lose that part of it. And hopefully it'll correct itself. The market has a way of correcting itself. I mean, if it's quality, if it's supply, the market will correct.
Just a little bit adding to what Randy has already said, is like some of the plants that I've been through. It's kind of like me in my old age, that Willamettes have kind of seen their end of their story. The Nookas have seen the end of the story. The Makers is now nearing the end of the story. And so the propagators, the people that are doing the research to find the new plants that gives us the tonnage per acre, that would be a big factor in our success.
It's just the commission meeting going on.
I've got a remote comment. I don't know if there's a question, but the general public doesn't understand that the majority of crops found with pesticide residue levels over thresholds are overwhelmingly from overseas. This is hard data that should be utilized to bolster the U.S. grown berry market.
Yeah.
You really want me to read the whole thing again? Okay, I'm gonna turn down the mic. It's kind of loud.
Yeah.
The general public doesn't understand that the majority of crops found with pesticide residue levels over thresholds are overwhelmingly from overseas. This is hard data that should be utilized to bolster the U.S. grown berry market.
I think this is one of the issues that the Washington Red Raspberry Commission is looking into, is a public relations campaign to educate people on some of these things. And I think one of the things that we really have to keep in mind is food safety. Because in our industry, if we have one bad incident, it's going to reflect. You've seen it in the cantaloupe, you've seen it in other industries over the years, where one bad food incident destroys the market. And by the way, over the years that I'm only remembering two, but I know there was three. A new product came out. Remember when the yogurt came out and it spiked our raspberry prices? Then the juice thing came out, the and it spiked our raspberry prices. And there was one other one, but I can't recall what it is. But we have some real challenges ahead. I think I feel more challenged now than I ever have been in the industry, to tell you the truth, just because of the access to social media and pricing. But one of the things she talked about was smaller buyers. Since I've been in the business, we used to sell to as many as 30 buyers. We're down to half of that now because of the consolidation of the industry. And it's making it very difficult for us as processors to sell our product.
Other questions, anyone? We have some of the board members are here, not to put any of them on a spot, but if there's any of the council members had anything they wanted to add, I won't call you all out by name. John told me that. Well, John told me that Mark's hand was up. I didn't see your hand go up, Mark. John
said.
Oh, you're off the hook for a minute.
Well, I know the nutritional standards and everything they've talked about in school lunch programs, and I just feel like there's been grants for local, lunch programs and that kind of thing, and I don't know where we're at in pursuing that as in marketplace.
Yeah, those have been done through the Washington Red Raspberry Commission, the bonus buy. Jesse talked about that, and because as the National School Lunch Program is Buy America, so from the council we have the difficulty of segregating out the import part from the domestic part in putting together requests for bids. So the Washington Commission, the Red Raspberry Commission, has put in that request, and she says 1.5 million pounds. So it's being done on the local level. We've supported that, and then the publication in the Seattle Times. We've helped coordinate with some information, nutritional information, marketing information to help build that. So that's where we've supported on the buy, if it does go through on that bonus buy. We've been working with both K through 12. We have a strategy in place there on getting that education out, the materials out. So we're helping on the marketing side, but the actual request is being done from the state commission.
I'm not totally understanding this, but that some of the complaints that I'd heard some of the farmers, mainly with the blueberries, not necessarily the raspberries, is that the selling on a government sale, that the length of time and all of the extra work that goes with it before they get paid is kind of puts it kind of iffy. They've got to get a pretty good price out of it, or otherwise it ain't worth going after. But I don't know.
Okay, Tom, one other thing I would like to mention, if possible here. Been on the board, had the privilege to be involved since the start. Have learned a lot. They're great people. These Tom and Allison and the group that are out representing us out in the industry. We have infiltrated places with red raspberry that we never would have had the opportunity before this commission was started. Where I'm going with this is like all boards, we're always in need of people to be a part. And so I would challenge everyone here and others that are at home as well, as you talk with them. We need people. Every year there's nominations to USDA that and we need enough people to step forward to be a part of this. It's a good organization. It's representing us very fairly. I believe that it's well worth our penny. They've always said sometimes you got to spend a dime to make a dollar, and I feel that this is one of these kind of areas. So think about it. Just a challenge to be involved, and then it's boy, once you're involved, then you have more answers. And we all know that communication in an industry such as this, when you get communication going horizontal, is when things really can happen. So Allison and Tom, thank you for all you do in representing us. And Clark, I guess we should thank you too.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you.
Have a 15-minute break, and we'll be back at 9:45.
My mama was right. There's blues in the night. The blues in the
I'll be around no matter how you treat me now. I'll be around from now on.
Thank you, Chris.
Well,
like I had
there was an option.
Well, there always is. Ultimately, but
I
guess you could just wake up this morning.
That's
an option.
Wouldn't have happened today because I didn't actually. I don't feel like I actually have well, there's just like, oh yeah, that. And if you find a love like mine, just know.
Just make sure. Are we doing this audio or just
drop the line?
Audio is going to be. They don't have the technology.
All they got to do is have a things
they're right next to the right next to the. You can see the Capitol there. Is it a private? Huge, y'all.
I'll be around.
They got them right there by the White House.
Why the hell can't they get a laptop with a camera?
I was a little surprised too. I talked to him.
So we're gonna basically just show nothing and have audio.
I guess. I told him we'd have somebody dancing up here.
Okay.
I would.
We'll do whatever. Even a still foot shot.